Robin Meier, hello and welcome here in Ptuj.
Hello, thank you very much.
You said before you don't like labels. You said I'm just artist, but you are often called artist of the future. Why would you think you have such a label, artist of the future? Because of your work are so, I don't know, futuristic or or what?
I don't know. I don't call that myself. I was actually called artist of the future just once, but I really like the title somehow because I love science fiction and I'm really into like futuristic stuff. So I kind of enjoyed it when I read it. But maybe they came up with that name because in my work, one thing I think about a lot is our role as humans in the world, how we interact with the world. And when people think of science fiction and the future, a lot of people think of progress and they think of science and engineering and rockets and all kind of technology. And I think a lot of people forget about the world, all the other parts of the world. I mean, engineering is one part, but I think in the future we maybe won't be able to just engineer ourselves out of a crisis, and it might be more important to engage with the world, the entire world around us. So that also includes living organisms and rocks and rain and the world as a whole. And that is very important in my work. So I do work with living organisms, with mosquitoes, or I'm very interested in like natural phenomenons like electromagnetic activity of the sun, for example, or asteroids or meteorites and bees or ants. And for me, the way we can engage with the world and think about the future is by taking all of that into account. It's not just about like making faster rockets and cleaner aeroplanes and self-driving cars. It's interesting and important also, but I think we need to have a wider picture.
Mm-hmm. Now, maybe more funny question, because when I was searching a little bit on your webpage, you have 5 icons there under the name. It's spade, airplane. I think it's also cloud and umbrella. Do they have any specific signs?
Oh my God! I didn't even remember the signs.
Okay.
This is true. There's an airplane and a sun.
Yes, and I think it's cloud and umbrella. Yes.
You know what? I actually never thought about it.
No, but it was very interesting. You know, to me, I was asking myself, okay, maybe these signs are changing, or he's changing, or are
it's
always the same.
Did you think there might be a story in it? Did you?
Yes. Yes.
What's the story?
That's why I'm asking you to answer me.
When I made it, I liked the icons because I felt like they could tell a story, but it's like super open. Like anybody can sort of project his own story into it. So it's like something that is there that provokes something. It like makes you think, but it doesn't really say something specific. But it still just opens a field and it kind of nudges you into a direction, but it doesn't necessarily have a message.
Okay, now let's get more serious. Here in Ptuj, you are presenting 2 works. The first one is Dream Machine. What is the concept behind it, Robin?
Yeah, well, Dream Machine was presented the first time last year in Paris at the Paris Art Lab. And it grew out of a fascination with the culture from the 1970s of like the Beat generation, the psychedelic culture of around William Burroughs, Brian Gysin, who were very fascinated with this device called the Dream Machine. That's where the title comes from. But also this musical culture at the same time. There's a composer, Lamonte Young, and his partner, Marianne Sazila. And I was very fascinated with that culture. And at the same time, I made this encounter a few years ago in Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh University, with Bart Ehrmantraut, who's a neuromathematician. So I didn't even know that exists, but it's a mathematician. It's somebody who tries to discover the maths of the brain, of the neurons, and he tries to find the mathematical rules in how our mind works, how the brain functions. And in particular, he was looking at vision, how we visually perceive the world, and he tried to find the mathematical formulas behind that vision. And one thing he was analyzing was hallucinations. So there is this phenomenon which the Beat generation, Lamonte Young and Brian Geisen already discovered, is that when you close your eyes and you have flickering lights, so for example you're in a train and you close your eyes and there are trees outside and you get these like flicker patterns behind your eyes, right? And when you get this, everybody after a while will start to see these geometric patterns. And it's just a natural reaction of your retina and the visual cortex in your brain. But what Bard was doing, he was trying to really analyze it, find the mathematical rules, and he even wrote like a computer software that simulates this behavior. And I found it really interesting to look at these two approaches. On the one hand side, you have like the scientist trying to understand it with like a computer program and mathematics, and on the other side, you have the artists and writers who compare it to some kind of legal drug and just a psychedelic experience and another way of another sort of consciousness. And I find it really interesting because it brings together these worlds which I constantly pass in between, or which I try to unite, of the natural and the artificial, which we always sort of see as two separate things, but which I think are the same, which are actually one and the same thing. There's not like nature and the artificial or artifact. It's the same world we live in, like what we said earlier about progress and machines. And so I was really interested in making this into an experience for people who want to come and see this. So it's really an environment in a space where you will see it far away because the lights will be flickering outside. So you'll see like the facades of TUI lighting up, and you'll see it actually from far away from TUI already because the lights of the tower and the castle will be synchronized to the gallery where you can go and see the environment. And when you come in, you'll be in this very dense smoke. So you'll be like completely immersed into this very fast flashing lights. And you will close your eyes and you will see these patterns emerging behind your closed eyes. And inside the space, there's this mechanical piano. And it's a mechanical piano we got here in Ptui, which is an instrument from, I think it's from the 1920s or so, pianola or phonola in this case. And I wrote a composition for this piano. So it's a piano that works with a paper roll that has holes in it, and it will play on its own. The keys will be moving on its own. A composition I made that is in sync with the lights and this environment where you can experience this exploration.
Mm-hmm. Why are you talking not about maybe multi-layered installation? You said environment. Why word environment?
Mm-hmm. I think it's just something more relatable because we always live in an environment and we are part of the environment. There's probably not even a clear frontier, not a clear what do you call it? We always live in an environment, but there's probably not even a clear border between the two. So we're part of the environment, and the environment is part of us. It's just the way we exist in the world. And what I'm trying to do with my projects is to create little modifications of the world we live in, and to change these environments, to create these worlds we move in and we live in. And so for me, this is a term that's more apt to the work I do. I think, I don't know, of course it's an installation and there are many layers, and it uses music and machines and stroboscopes and computers and DMX and all of that stuff. But for me, that's a very technical way of talking about it. And I think what's important for me is really how you experience it and what you kind of live when you're in there.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned technology and art. These two seem miles away from each other, but you're trying to combine them, and you are combining them, aren't you? Would you say they have something in common? Even if they look so far away, each one from another.
Well, technology is a tool. I mean, you can make art with anything really, by just thinking probably, or making sounds, or with a stick and two stones, or a computer. So I think you can use any medium to make art, to express yourself. So technology is just another medium. But I'm really fascinated with computer and this kind of digital technology in particular. Maybe because I grew up with the computers, and I was probably amongst one of the first generations to grow up with the computer in the home and have the internet very early on, but it was still very new. So when I was born, the internet wasn't there, and it was around, I don't know, like 10 or 12, I remember, when we had the first internet connection. and maybe that's one part why this is fascinating for me, and probably other people in my generation too. But I think it also goes farther today, because as I said, we always have this idea of like technology and nature being like two different things. It's like culture and nature being two different things. And today I think we can get closer to seeing that it's the same. And I was especially interested in artificial neural networks, for example, or like a part of artificial intelligence, where with computers you try to simulate nature, and the border between the two then becomes more and more blurred. And I found that really interesting when nature imitates culture, and when culture imitates nature, and it sort of creates these hybrids, or kind of cyborgs. I think that's where really new things can emerge, when things start to mix, and when it's not clear if it's one or the other. And I think that's why I'm kind of into this kind of technology.
And another piece that you are presenting here is synchronicity. Synchronicity, yes. And this I would say this is very Robin in a way, because here you use fireflies. You have some pieces when you use some other insects, I don't know, ants, for example, or mosquitoes. But what was the idea behind this one, the synchronicity?
Well, synchronicity is a piece for which I had the idea a very long time ago. I read a book by Stephen Strogatz, another mathematician, incidentally, who wrote about synchrony in nature. So there's many different phenomenons of things synchronizing in nature. For example, metronomes, when they're on the same surface, or when you talk with someone and you walk, like naturally, or steps will start to synchronize. Or people clapping, they will start synchronizing. It's something very natural. But even out in space, you can have like huge rocks and boulders moving around, and with gravitational pull, they will start to synchronize. There are many different phenomena, and it's a great book, by the way, about all these different phenomena of synchronization in nature. And one of the first examples he gives is the example of fireflies. And it describes how fireflies in the mangrove forests in Southeast Asia, certain fireflies, a certain kind of firefly, will naturally synchronize. So these fireflies, they flash, and in the evening they congregate in the bushes, and at first they will flash randomly, at random, but very soon you will start seeing patterns emerge, like several fireflies starting to flash at the same time, starting to synchronize. And after only a few minutes, you'll have like huge areas of fireflies, like hundreds and hundreds of fireflies starting to sync up and to all flash at the same time. And I read about it and thought, wow, this sounds really crazy. I would love to see it, yeah. But I never got the chance for like more than 10 years or so. And I read about it, and at one point I found some old footage, like from Japanese TV channel, like shot in the night, so you could hardly see, it was all green. And I then, in 2015, got a commission to do a piece. It was commissioned by a Swiss watch company. And so I thought, let's do something about synchronization, and they really loved the idea. And so with my friend Andre Gwerder, we went to Thailand, and we're in touch with researchers there studying these fireflies for a long time, and we finally got the chance to go there and film this phenomenon. But more than just documenting it, what I wanted to do was to interact with the fireflies and explore this kind of behavior. So what we did was to place a small number of LEDs, maybe 15, 20 LEDs, in the mangrove, in the bushes, and these LEDs were controlled by computers. So they were just giving a regular rhythm, like a musical rhythm, like a metronome. And the fireflies in the bushes would see these LEDs, and thinking that it's other fireflies, they would start to synchronize with the LEDs. And so over time, you would have like a huge colony of fireflies all blinking to the same rhythm given by the computer, basically. So this was a starting point for this project Synchronicity. And then after this, there were several different versions of Synchronicity. There was a very large installation where we had actually live fireflies in a gallery, and we recreated the mangrove forest with even a small river and plants and all kind of machinery also that started to synchronize. We had metronomes that synchronized. We had the river, the pump of the water flowing started to synchronize to the fireflies. We had other species. We had crickets, like Malaysian crickets that make a sound, like whoosh, whoosh, and they would synchronize to a sound they hear. So there were synthesizers that would produce sounds in sync always. And the crickets would hear the sound, and they would synchronize to that sound of the synthesizer. So you would have the crickets synchronizing with the fireflies, with the machines, and you'd have, again, an entire environment of human, non-human, non-organic objects, animals, beings, whatever it is, all synchronizing with each other. And I think it's quite typical of my work also, trying to combine these very different things and to have this sort of order or this organization or these patterns emerge out of these interactions.
But this is not the only project where you have used insects. There is trees, where you use mosquitoes, and there is another one, the tragedy of the commons, where is the choreography of ants that are reacting to the one smell and some colors and smells some others. So you're a semi-scientist because
I'm not a scientist. I'm really.
No, but you're working a lot with the scientists, obviously.
Yeah. I work a lot with scientists and
also in labs.
Also in labs. I mean, almost every project I did was at some point there was some collaboration or interaction or a meeting or some exchange with the scientist. I'm really fascinated by the sciences, and I read a lot of scientific publications and magazines, and I get really, if I get into a subject, I will really start to research it and start reading a lot of papers and look at the references and go crazy about it. And then I start contacting the scientists and I start asking questions. And then some projects, they grow out of many years of just occasionally chatting with scientists and sending a message, and it really becomes also friendships. Like some people I worked with on an exhibition, they're still friends, and we go on vacation together and we talk about science and art. So it's really fascinating. So all of these works always come out of these interactions and collaborations.
Do you learn from each other? So you certainly can learn something from the scientists, but what about vice versa?
Yeah, it's actually what I'm always trying to do. It's not just taking stuff from science and make some art out of it and then say goodbye, but also actually use art as a tool for exploration and use it also as a tool for scientific exploration in a certain way. Because what is nice in the artistic context is that you can go completely crazy. You can just try out weird things, and a lot of scientists like that. They think, oh yeah, that suddenly opens up other ideas, or use something from a completely different field. And sometimes it's also just about looking things, looking at things differently. I mean, you mentioned Truce, which is this installation with live mosquitoes, and I was working in a lab in Minneapolis for several weeks. A lot of labs study mosquitoes because they transmit a lot of disease, and so they look at the genetics and all kinds of different aspects of mosquitoes. And I told them, yeah, I want to work with the sound of mosquitoes. And they're like, yeah, whatever, we don't really understand what you want to do, but look, here's some mosquitoes, you can sit in the lab. And they were very nice. And so I spent the time there, and I developed this installation. And when they came to the gallery to see it, they told me, these scientists who've been working with mosquitoes since like 25 or 30 years, they told me, we won't be looking at the mosquitoes the same way again. And I think that was really one of the nicest compliments I got. But yeah, sometimes science goes back into the art. Like with the fireflies we talked about, actually a scientist at the Max Planck Institute in Germany contacted me because he wants to work on synchronization, and he had seen the video. And so he asked me a lot of technical questions about how we produced the videos, how we worked with the fireflies, and we also gave him a lot of footage we filmed in the jungle, footage we didn't use in the video, and some footage we used, so he could analyze it. And we studied the raising of fireflies also, because when we did the installation with live fireflies in the museum, we didn't want to use wild fireflies because they're under a lot of ecological pressure. A lot of fireflies are disappearing. So there are some labs that try to breed fireflies in the lab so they can reintroduce them in nature. And so we worked with those labs, and we tried to use funding also for them to develop these breeding techniques. So we used maybe 10, 20 fireflies for a show, but at the same time we hope that they can breed hundreds and thousands of fireflies to reintroduce them into nature.
And the reactions of the visitors in the galleries when they come and see, I don't know, in the installation, the tragedy of the commons, for example, what are the reactions?
Well, people are quite fascinated to see these animals and be in close contact with them. And I mean, in all these works, I always try to create some kind of interaction with the living organism. I'm trying not to just exploit them, but actually collaborate with them. And I think a good example is the piece called Truce with the mosquitoes, because the mosquitoes are actually, they stick to a microphone and they fly in place in a metallic contraption, and it looks like a torture machine really. And then people come into the gallery and they see the mosquito there flying in place, and it's amplified, and there's a camera there and it's projected, and then they ask, oh, what's going on? Is the mosquito in pain, and what are you doing to this poor mosquito? And I think that's a great reaction, because it shows that people immediately identify with the mosquito, and nobody ever identifies with the mosquito. When you have a mosquito in your tent when you're camping, you just try to kill it or you run away. But here, when they see it like this and they hear it and they can actually touch it or breathe on it and see a reaction, it becomes an individual. It's not just a pest. And as an individual, they will identify, they will interact, they will somehow almost bond with the insect. And so it completely changes the way they see this insect, this pest, and the way they interact with it. Or even the pigeons, like I did this performance with live pigeons in a railway station. And
Song for the Ghost Travelers?
Song for Ghost Travelers, exactly. And when I first presented the project to the railway station in Paris and the SNCF, they said, oh, no, pigeons, we spend thousands of euros every year to keep the pigeons out. Yes. They're just a pest, and they break everything. And then in the end, like, people from SNCF were sending me messages like, oh, it was so great. And like,
but you make a composition, and you combine humans, musicians,
exactly,
musicians and pigeons.
Human musicians with live pigeons who were flying freely in the railway station. And so it just changes the way people approach the world around them, and that's what I hope happens when people see this kind of project.
Robin, this year Artstays title is No More Silence. Is there a place for silence in your works? So what is the role of silence in your works, if there is any silence, if there is any place for it?
Well, I mean, I see like almost all of my works as musical compositions, But my idea of musical composition is quite large, quite wide, so it doesn't necessarily include sound. When we were working with the fireflies in the forest, I was just using LEDs and the fireflies were doing their amazing thing. And for me that was a musical composition, but there was no sound. It was just I mean, not sounds because you're in the forest. There were like hundreds and thousands of insects making sounds, but I wasn't producing any sound. And still, you don't need sound for like music to happen. I think you just need time, and you just need some kind of perception to be there, and then it just happens. So even in silence, there's sound.
Robin Meier, thank you very much for this interesting interview. I wish you a pleasant stay here in Ptuj, and good luck and a lot of creativity by your future artwork.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very much.